Hello and welcome to episode 393 of Sri's Sunday New York Times Read Along. Yes, it's the Sunday New York Times Read Along co-hosted by Neil Parekh and Sri Srinivasan. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and our Digimentors website. Please like, comment, share, retweet, do all the things you do to make sure that people can find this show. We have several very interesting topics today. Of course, the Artemis II flight, the lunar flyby. We have Zohran Mamdani's first 100 days. Both of those took place actually on April 10th, on Friday. And the way we teed up the question on when we put out the show, sent out the email on Friday, was the end of the war in Iran with a question mark. And given the collapse of the peace talks this morning, that was definitely the right way to go. So please let us know where you're watching from. Let us know what, and tag your friends. We certainly want to let people know about the today's program. I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Muck and Graphic History Company. Muck, of course, has been a longtime sponsor of the show, and Graphic History Company joined us just last year. The show is produced by Digimentors, the social and digital firm that Sri started with his friend Andrew Lee. And I'm proud to be the Vice President of Events and Communications. We, of course, are producing the show in collaboration with Scroll, one of India's most important independent websites. So we are so proud of that partnership, and we're so glad to be on their YouTube channel. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's go ahead and bring on our co-host, Sri Srinivasan. Sri, good to see you.
Hi, Neil. Great to see you. We have so much to talk about, and we have so many people watching with us. So let's say hello to people as they come in. Here's Amy watching from Port Angeles or
Washington. Amy
Washington.
McIntyre.
Yeah, is this in Washington State? Then
It's Washington State.
yeah,
3
that means
hours.
it's 5:30 in the morning. Amy, welcome. Jonathan, much closer home here in the East Village. John is watching. Thank you, John. Always. Paula, longtime producer of this show and friend, is watching and says good morning from Tallahassee, Florida. Rajan is watching from Bayshore in Long Island. Gunter is watching from Austria. Hello, Austria. We are very happy to have all of you here. And Ken Fisher is watching from Grant Wood Studio in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And Iowa will be in the news, as it always is in the election cycle, as an early place. And Amy's saying hello back, which is nice. And this is the moment where Neil gets to say hi to his mother.
Hi to my mother. That's I am trying to find different ways, Sri, to say hi to her, and she did get a chuckle last week or 2 weeks ago now when I was pretended to be confused about what to say when I saw her on screen. But Mom, thank you for watching as always, and I want to let you know one of the things we will be talking about in a few minutes, and we can even jump in now. Sri. Asha Bhosle passed away, legendary Indian singer, sister of, for some folks who would know, Lata Mangeshkar. In fact, what are your thoughts on Asha Bhosle?
So these are two of the biggest names in India. These sisters, who are what are called playback singers in India, meaning they're not out there performing in movies, but they provide the singing voices of every famous Indian female musician of the last, actor of the last several decades. And Asha Bhosle has passed away. She has a larger than life. She had a larger than life presence in the lives of Indians in India and abroad, and also for Pakistanis and people in the Middle East who follow Bollywood. They all know her music because if you haven't ever seen a Bollywood film, everybody sings at some point in a classic Bollywood, in a regular Bollywood film. And so those actors aren't able to sing. So they have these playback singers who sing for them. They're kind of lip syncing the voice of these women. And in a way, Lata Mangeshkar, to be her sister was an enormous burden, but she carved out her own way and her own place in the history of India and Indian cinema. And it's a milestone that she has passed, but she will live on with the music because the Bollywood songs are something that I listen to all the time, and I'm sure we're going to a lunch today. I'm sure we'll be playing that music as well. So Sudanti, I know you're thinking of Asha Bhosle today, but so will be many, many people. There she is. Thank you for pulling that up. Deb is watching from I'm not, I want to make sure I get that right, but I won't know, right? Dillon, Florida, she'll tell us. And Ankit is watching from Delhi. And I'd love to hear from some of the folks who are fans of Asha Bhosle what this means. Neha Lata is watching from Mumbai. It's evening here, and good evening to you both. Very happy to
Yes.
have you here. And that's a full name there, Snehalata. Snehalata Karanbir Singh Raghav. That's great. Miriam is watching from Hell's Kitchen. Naomi is watching from Rhode Island. We had taken Easter off, and so now we are back. So great to have you, Neil.
And Naomi, a longtime viewer, and we exchanged a few emails. She's recovering from spinal surgery, so
Mm.
she is back in action. I think this was it was Good Friday. I think she mentioned she had surgery. So Naomi, I'm glad that recovery is going well. I'm glad that Lou is being able to help with your recovery, and we wish you all the best. But yeah, very serious spinal surgery, I think, in several places that she had to deal with.
I'll just say, having seen Rupa, my wife, have some
Rupa, yeah,
spinal surgery, and in the news we see Tiger Woods, a very troubled man, because of his 21 surgeries he's had, including multiple surgeries on his back. We know how painful and enduring trouble with your back can be. So, everybody who's having back issues, we are thinking of you. Snehalata says, may her soul rest in peace. The nation mourns her loss. And that's about Asha Bhosle, who we were just talking about. And Sudha says, both the sisters, Lata and Asha ji, both sang for 80 years. That is some number. And Dr. Sujita Chandrasekhar, great friend of the show, watching today on YouTube. So sad about Asha. Beautiful, melodious voice and amazing personality. And we also have Diane saying, good morning from a spin bike in Margate, New Jersey. That's multitasking there. That's pretty cool.
I need to ask Diane at some point. I mean, first of all, you're commenting while you're on the spin bike. I
Yeah.
mean, just watching is. I really want to know. Can you please next week or next not next week, but the next show we do, we won't be on next week. But can you please have someone else film you watching the show so we can see what's going on?
Sure. Susan says hello from Reading, Connecticut. Pradnya from Silver Spring. Naomi says thank you for the warm wishes after 6 spinal
Six.
surgeries on Good Friday. And Deb says 3, a successful family wedding in I don't know if this helps me with my
Deland?
pronunciation. DeLand, a middle of Florida, an hour from Daytona. Lots of dancing. We approve of that. And not making my teacher happy, says Diane, who's on her spin bike. And Amy is giving us a little emoji reaction there. Folks, if you're new to us, because we know there's so many new people watching, this is the Sunday New York Times read along. We read the New York Times and sometimes other newspapers. And we do this because we love the news. We love accurate, professional news that is created by folks who are doing this for all of us. And this is not about the New York Times alone. It's about making sure you, as somebody watching, can have the tools to understand what's happening in the world, and we push back against misinformation and disinformation. And speaking of problems with accuracy, I was mispronouncing it. It's D-land, I guess.
No, no, it's the
D-land
other way.
or
Deland,
DeLand, or but it's also
right?
sometimes heard as D-land. The common local pronunciation focuses on the land. So DeLand, DeLand,
Yeah.
Florida. Thank you. You learned something today. And here's our friend Mary C. Curtis. Good morning from Charlotte, North Carolina. Thoughts to my sister Janice in Baltimore, who just had serious back surgery
Oh, wow.
recovering. So we have this. It's the home of Stetson University. And we're thinking of your sister, Mary. And Deb says, small world. I have family in DeLand, Florida. We're going to start by just looking at the paper. I like to look at yesterday's paper just to see what's happening in the world and just to see the continuity. Chance for U.S.-Iran deals uncertain, as we know the deal has failed. And here on the cover is the splashdown back home after a lunar loop. The Artemis II capsule splashed down on Friday after taking humans farther from Earth than ever before. Coverage at the NewYorkTimes.com. And then 100 days in is Mamdani. Mamdani is learning as he goes. Mayor has quick run of successes, but also abandoned vows. U.S. urges allies to fight the far left, affixing terrorism labels to an array of activism. And travelers open their wallets for plusher flights. And avid video gamer, the FAA has a job offer. A skill set pairs well to air traffic control. So anyone whose family was complaining you're spending too much time doing all kinds of video games, not only can you get a job, you can also help the country out at this moment.
Sri, if you can put the picture of the splashdown back up. I want to just say that for me it wasn't the splashdown. It was when if you're watching the landing, and I have a question for folks in just a moment. But after there was 6 minutes where we lost contact with Artemis II as it was re-entering the atmosphere, and there were some concerns that the heat shields might fail. Having watched Challenger explode, it. I was worried, Sri, and I think we exchanged messages. I actually hesitated to announce the show in the hours before splashdown, just in case the worst happened. So I was thankful. I was very, very thankful when everything uh, uh, turned out well and the astronauts came home.
I was not paying enough attention because I was busy yesterday, but the idea of the heat shield story is so important. You have the Challenger explosion on the takeoff, and then
Yeah,
the destruction of Columbia on
Columbia coming
reentry
in. That's
because of the heat shield and the tiles. Because as everybody now knows, having watched all these shows that or watched the space exploration for years, that when the capsule or the shuttle is re-entering Earth, there's so much heat from coming through the atmosphere that the tiles have to be so strong, and if there's any leakage, breakage, anything, then it can just disintegrate as it
yeah.
happened with Columbia, and we lost so many good astronauts, including Kalpana Chawla, an Indian American from a small village in India who grew up to be an astronaut and very successful and went to space twice. And so I hadn't heard about trouble with the heat shield, and you'd think after all of these decades, that's one thing that they were able to fix. And if you remember with Columbia, it was because on takeoff, something a piece of ice or a debris hit one of the
Yeah.
tiles, and they knew all along that this could be an issue. And then, as you said, the worst happened.
They knew actually before takeoff that this was a possibility. There was something wrong, with the heat shields. They weren't sure if it would survive reentry. So there was a little bit of tension around that. And like I said, I was reluctant to
Mhm.
promote the Artemis II celebration story just before. Sojana says that she agrees that check-in after those 6 minutes was an amazing feeling. I want to take a moment, Sri, and this is an experiment for our audience. So the first thing I'm going to put up, StreamYard, the platform we use to produce this show, has a new function, polling. So I want to put this on the screen and see whether you can see this. So let's see, where is oh, if it's showing on your screen. So it should say, sorry, it's starting and stopping it because I was trying to figure out if it was working. I'm not seeing it work. Oh, it's yeah. Did you watch the Artemis II landing? So there we go. So do you see this on the screen? Are you able to um interact with it? If you can, on Facebook, on YouTube, in theory at least, you should be able to respond to the poll. If you can't, just type it in the comments of whether or not you watched the landing. I'm curious to see how this works. Again, this is a new feature. We're experimenting, and would love to know what works on your end. I'm trying it. I'm viewing it on my end. I don't see a way to respond to the poll. So if I'm not seeing any responses, we will stop it and experiment again later. So Sri, not sure what why it works or how it doesn't work. We'll have to get some feedback for StreamYard on that.
And this is the community that we've built, and they're so helpful to us. And I know if it was working, we would have seen people hitting
Yeah.
1 or 2. And so we'll do some more research around this.
Sure.
This is part of
Sure.
what we always talk about, hashtag always be learning, and we're learning and you're learning with us. And here's Apollo watching from Philadelphia. Hi, Apollo. Great to have you here. Rajan says, I'm praying that programs like this will be extended after the midterms, and the current interim here in the US will be exactly that. And Sujana says about the New York Times story about the 100 days about Mamdani, is that the Times is trying hard to discredit Mayor Mamdani. It's laughable, truly. I haven't read the story. The headline is 100 days in, Mamdani is learning as he goes. Mayor has quick run of successes, but also abandoned vows. So I would say everything is fair up to the but also. And to say abandon the vows in 100 days, we have a president over 2 presidencies has been promising us infrastructure, promising us healthcare, promising us so many things that he has not delivered. And I don't think the assessments of Trump in the New York Times start with that, with saying he's abandoned all these vows. So this is what journalists have to do, have to look at the full picture. I don't know if that word abandoned is the right word there. Delayed, postponed, hasn't gotten to it. There could be anything really, but you can also see that they are acknowledging his successes, including, by the way, in Philadelphia, where I was this weekend, people are complaining that their mayor did a terrible job with the snow removal, whereas in New York City, he tried something new. He paid New Yorkers to clear the snow. And that's considered widely considered a success. And the photo that they used here is Mayor Zohran Mamdani helped the Department of Sanitation on Friday's 100th day in office. And here's that line. It says he was quickly retreated from one campaign promise after another. He once vowed to relinquish unilateral control of public schools. That I knew he would do. Now he supports renewing the law that established it. He has pledged to expand a rental voucher program. Now he's trying to limit his growth, where once he called for reducing class sizes, he's now asking for more time to implement. This is called governing. And there's a great line in the show Hamilton where Washington tells Hamilton, I believe, if my memory serves, we need Emily in here for a consultation. Neil's 13-year-old daughter, but Washington says, winning is easy, young man. Governing is harder.
Exactly.
Winning is easy, young man. Governing is harder. That was true 2 centuries ago, and it's true today. And this is just life in power. And to judge it all in 100 days is kind of ridiculous. But covering a dynamic mayor who has put real energy into this city is something that's not easy for reporters to do. And by the way, I should say, having just come from a 5 country tour of Asia, everywhere I went, people asked me about Zohran and how he's doing. The mayor of New York City should not be that famous, should not be somebody who everybody knows, but they do because of his personality, because of his energy, because of his youth.
They do lead with him having a quick litany of quick accomplishments. Three. This is from the same article. Reignited projects to improve bus speeds, built a city hall rest stop for delivery workers, opened a long delayed infirmary on Rikers Island for Rikers Island detainees, secured state money to fund an expansion of free preschool, and going after abusive employers and landlords. But I think that, the way the article is framed, it almost feels like this is a throwaway, and the focus is on he hasn't accomplished what he said he would in the first 100 days. Now, of course, the first 100 days is a milestone that was really popularized under FDR. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. We're nearing almost 100 years from that time. But that's the measuring stick that it's interesting. That's the measuring stick that every politician is held to. You have these reviews, but as you said with Trump, I don't think it held the same way. Certainly in 2017, they looked at, oh my God, all the things he broke in the first 100 days, but you can't compare. He's not. Trump is completely different in terms of every day. There's something that is awful. There's something that is being destroyed. You could have done the same kind of list in the Trump's first day of all the things that he had
and
accomplished.
the mayoralty of New York is very different from the chief executive of the United States and the commander in chief. But I think that the mayor has done really good work, and I was watching very carefully the news yesterday about a machete wielding man in Grand Central Station, which isn't very far from where I'm sitting right
Yeah.
now. He attacked three people and then was shot by police, and how Zohran Mamdani would handle that matters because people want to feel safe at that moment. And his comments were first about the safety and then about the cops. And there's also an internal review to see if the right thing was done. All of that, I thought he handled it really well. And because he's such a good communicator, I had faith in that. And also working very closely with Jessica Tisch, the police commissioner, who all those billionaires and on the right and everybody else loved so much from the previous administration. He has kept her, and they've had a good partnership so far to start. Again, it's 100 days. There's so much to do. And by the way, this framing of 100 days isn't just for politics, as we know, because when you start a job, you're told you have 90 days, 100 days to achieve things. And I remember when I was made chief digital officer of the Metropolitan Museum of Art here in New York, I was given a book that said your first 100 days and what to do and how you can have milestones. And it's not the same because I didn't have a record of things that I promised the museum or anything, but it's so hard to know exactly what you're going to do and then to be able to do it in what sequence, what timing, what the cadence of your outreach. All of that's so difficult
Agreed.
and complicated at a small job like mine, let alone the mayor of New York. Here's a nice thing. Susan says that the New York Times made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So I have a digital subscription to the news again. And we tell everybody subscribe, not necessarily to the Times, to a news publication in your life, around you, somewhere, wherever you live, because it makes a difference. You can also support independent journalism like scroll.in, which is one of India's largest and most important independent news websites. And so you can do that. So please do that if you can. And here is Gen X held our collective breath, says Pradnya, about the Artemis reentry. Rahadian says, I'm very happy that the Artemis didn't turn out like Challenger and Columbia. Deborah says, I noticed in yesteryears that the astronauts would be quarantined for days. This time they were hugging their families when they got back to
Yeah.
land. Amazing group of people. Kalpana Chawla was the first South Asian NASA astronaut. That's correct. There had been Rakesh Sharma, who was a Indian uh, uh, cosmonaut because he was
Oh,
taken up by the
I didn't realize
Russians
that.
in 1984. That's right. So she was the first American, and they called them cosmonauts versus astronauts. And Sujana says, "I was visiting a friend in Philly when the Challenger exploded, and the horror was thankfully not revisited. Deb watched the
Yeah.
landing, can't check it. So they're saying that little." Experiment we ran did not work. Miriam says, I remember listening to the radio when the Challenger exploded. For the most devastating part was the death of Krista McAuliffe, who had a young daughter, and she was the first teacher in space. That particular uh, liftoff was covered extensively globally because the first civilian going into space, a teacher selected after a huge run up, and very tragic.
I'll share three that in talking with Pam, her science teacher actually was a runner-up in that process of being the first astronaut, first
Wow.
civilian in space. So
Mm.
their school was watching, had a big assembly, and the teacher was kind of narrating things and watching. It was certainly a very traumatic incident. She was in sixth grade at the time. I remember being in seventh grade and walking from one class to another, and our social studies teacher standing in the hallway just saying, he didn't say, he just go inside, sit down, just watch the TV, just go inside, watch, sit down. And we didn't know what was going on. And we sat down and we're watching the coverage. I still get chills thinking about that.
Yeah, that's and what a story. And that teacher must have been so disappointed in the run up to have come in as a runner up and not getting that. But to quote the great philosopher Garth Brooks, who said, sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers. And that's the most apt way I can think of that teacher's life, that it would have gone a very different way.
Yeah.
Susan says that I think that we have money for space travel and war, but not healthcare. So she did not watch. I'm a huge cynic about the whole purpose of this mission. And
Hmm.
Apollo says that Trump has promised to be retribution, and he has promised, and he has done that well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I think that's the third topic that we were going to talk about today, the end of the war in Iran. There was the ceasefire that was declared. Excuse me. And I'll just take a quick drink, Sri. Sri ceasefire that was declared, and we raised the question: is this the end of the war? And even the headline in today's paper, I'm curious in terms of whether you have a later edition than I do. The headline that I saw was that there were still talks going on. What in the top left? What's the headline?
It's the
Top right.
Vance leads negotiations to end war he opposed, and so they don't have the news in there. The
Yeah,
it
and so
was yeah, the negotiations that failed by around 11 p.m. or so, maybe even a little earlier, last
yeah, it
Eastern
was.
time. Yeah, so
So when I looked at the paper online and saw the headline, that was certainly a bit of, I wouldn't say a shock, but it certainly moved the framing. U.S. and Iran failed to agree on peace deal, with a picture of J.D. Vance walking out of the presumably the negotiating room in Pakistan.
yeah.
Um,
I'd say
so
a
we're
couple
not
of
done yet.
yeah, when we a couple of things about that I was saying that you wouldn't trust. If I were the Iranians, I would make sure that JD Vance was in my immediate area the entire time, because you cannot trust the Americans not to bomb you at any moment. And so using JD Vance as a human shield would have been a good idea by them. By the way,
Right.
here is today's lead photograph is also from Artemis, and this is the cheers at a watch party in the San Diego Air and Space Museum. I didn't know that we had another Air and Space Museum like you do in the DC area in San Diego, and they're watching and cheering. And so the headline is "Mission to the Moon inspires a sense of reverence, chance to ponder our power and our powerlessness." Very interesting framing of that. We'll get to the paper just a minute. We just want to go through all these wonderful comments, folks. So if you're watching, what we do is unlike anything you see on television, where you're watching the news, you can yell at the TV, but here you can write back to us and we put it on the screen and you get to chat. Please tag your friends right now on whatever platform you're on. They can watch us live or later. Anyone who cares about the news, just tag them, put it in your group chat, put it on DMs. Tell people about the show, please. Radian says Mamdani has done more in his first 100 days than many of his predecessors as mayor of New York. And that's a very good observation. Robert Reich, says John, has an interesting list of Mamdani successes. The last one, I suspect, is the most popular with actual New Yorkers. Fixed thousands of potholes in New York City streets. And Gunter in Austria is trying to help us with this experiment we were doing. And Pradnya says, my 13-year-old refers to him as her mayor, and we don't even live there, which is great. And Radian says, Mamdani is arguably the best looking mayor since John Lindsay in the 60s. So, and that's, by the way, one of the reasons why Trump and Mamdani get along so well, because Trump loves good looking people, successful people, and he's doing that. And Neil has put in a link in Facebook to the coverage of the first 100 days. And Miriam says he has accomplished an enormous amount for the first 100 days, and with so many people not trying to help. Well said. Ken, I saw the last SAFE mission before the Columbia disaster. It was a night launch. My son worked for NASA then as an engineer. Wow. Uh, Please thank him for his service. And Naomi says, The Guardian is fiercely independent and my go to for balanced and important international news. No paywall, but they do try to guilt you into paying, and guilt works well too. They'll tell you how many stories you've read in a year. They'll say, this year you've read 30 stories. Wouldn't you like to contribute? So we certainly encourage people to support The Guardian as well. And Sujana says, the money for space travel advances science and the human condition. There is no justification for war, monetarily or otherwise. And Rahadian is now tagging friends Barb and Pam and Vince. All of you do this right now, please, on whatever platform you're on. And Sudha says Trump wants to continue the war to avoid all the allegations. Now he's planning to take over Cuba. And there was a lot of consternation. Why is Melania making this declaration that nobody asked for? And one of the conspiracy theories is that the Iran war happened so that they could distract from the Epstein files. By Melania speaking out, then you're using the Epstein files
From
to
the Iran.
distract from the war. So that's could be, and with this government, you have no idea what could be possible. And John, great supporter of this show and friend, The Guardian has successfully guilted me, and Diane watched as well. And Pradnya says the first 100 days is all well and good, but when will Zoran and Rama give us some
Uh,
good news? Love, Auntie. So this is the classic Indian American, South Asian culture thing of asking newlyweds after maybe sometimes they wait a year, maybe not, saying, when are you giving us the good news of
Three
children?
Jewish moms as well,
Oh.
and almost every other kind of ethnic group. I don't think it's just Indian. Give me a grandbaby. That's the only thing that matters.
And Diane, thank you for tagging your friends. So we're live
Yeah.
on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, as well as on the Digimentors website. And if you are interested, you can go into the archive of the Digimentors website, look for the New York Times read along, and on several episodes, you will find special exclusive PDFs that we've been given by the New York Times that you can access and download and take a look at. So spend some time going through the Digimentors website, and we definitely appreciate that. So Neil, any things you'd like to talk about before we get to the paper? I know you
No.
had a very important show on mental health just last week, and then you have another one coming up this week. Tell us about that.
Thank you, Sri. Absolutely. So April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, if folks are not familiar. And it's something that we've talked about on this show in the past, but I want to just let folks know before I mention it. I myself am a survivor of sexual assault. I was abused by a neighbor when I was 7 years old. I've talked about it for the first time actually on this very show almost 9 years ago. So for folks, longtime viewers, if you might remember, but that was a seminal moment for me. I've since gone on to talk about it somewhat frequently. Did a whole series of shows a couple years ago. But for the mental health show that I do with Dawn Newberg, in April, we focus on sexual assault awareness. And last Thursday, we did a special show on looking back, moving forward, the cycles of healing after sexual assault. Because what we found is that the process is not linear. There's a lot of twists and turns. You have to look back and really understand what happened. And sometimes you may, have some regression just in terms of the healing process, but you do move forward. And this next Thursday, we're doing our shows a little bit off our schedule. Usually it's the second and fourth Thursday of the month. But this month, because of all the events around Sexual Assault Awareness Month, our next episode will be this coming Thursday, April 16th. Serena Martin will join us, and we will be talking about how sexual assault survivors' trauma isn't a competition. The important thing about that, Sri, is that the idea is that we don't want people to compare one story against another and feel that your story is not as important as someone else's because maybe there was more violence involved, or maybe it took place over a longer period of time, or there was a different age, or the circumstances were different. It doesn't matter. Trauma is trauma, and we want to honor everyone's story regardless of what the circumstances is. Circumstances are. So we'll be discussing that on Thursday of this week. I have an email list. If you're interested, drop me an email and I can add you to it, and we'll be live on my channels and my website. Thank you, Sri, for your support and Digimentor's support of this very important show.
Thank you for speaking up. Diane says, I love your courage to speak out. You are literally saving lives by speaking up. And to everyone who hasn't been paying attention to the show, please send that show to men in your life who are reluctant to talk about mental health. And if you have South Asian men in your life, that's even more important because they're even more reluctant to speak about it. But everybody will benefit, men, women, and many of the shows, of course, deal with adult themes. But if there are children who can, or younger people who can handle it, they should also watch. But you watch first and then encourage your family to know about this. Just awareness that this show exists will be helpful to people. And thank you, Neil, for all you're doing with that. We have some more comments, and then we're going to get to the news. Our friend Diana is watching from the San Francisco area at 6 a.m. And Sujana says that Pradnya's response, asking for grandchildren from the mayor, is the right response. John says the whole purpose of having children is to have grandchildren. Otherwise, why go through all the bother and the expense? And Pradnya says that this was she gave some money to the guardian, and
Mamdani?
so
Is that why she's is that why she's giving money to Mamdani to get him to no?
No, I don't think so. And Miriam has another take. She says, well, do we really want the new mayor to have a baby at home, waking him up in the middle of the night? I think we want the mayor to be focused on the city. Very good and different approach. And Amy says, I really appreciate Neil's work highlighting mental health. So thank you, everybody, for your comments. They mean a lot. And Neil has two mailing lists that you can join. One is for his mental health show, and the other is for the read along. And every Saturday, Friday, Saturday, he will send you information whether we're having a show, what we're covering, if we have a special PDF, how you can get it. So you want to sign up for that for sure. We have a couple of hundred people on both those lists. So please sign up for that. We would love to have you supporting Neil's outreach and work that he is doing. Pradnya says that's what grandmas and aunties are for, to talk about grandkids. And then speaking of supporting us, I want to remind everyone about my Sunday note. That's the newsletter that I write every Sunday. It's the content will always be free, but we would love your paid support as well. If you can join us and pay for it on Substack, we'd appreciate it. We're able to create new content in addition to the Sunday Note. Here is a piece. I did an interview with Anil Karya, who is the director of a new Hamlet. Like the world needs another Hamlet, you'll be thinking, but this is Riz Khan starring as a Hamlet set in the rich South Asian London Desi community, South Asian community. And I had so much fun interviewing Anil. We also asked him about Bait, which is one of the biggest shows in the world. And we also asked him whether Riz Ahmed playing Hamlet as a non-traditional white actor, does that give him a shot at maybe being James Bond as a non-traditional white actor? And you should watch his response there. So this is what we're able to do because of your support of our show. So we really appreciate it, and it means a lot to us. So if you can, in fact, afford to be a paid member, we'd appreciate that. One of our friends paid for 250 subscriptions so that we'd keep this content free. So that was another
Wow.
way to support us, and that was enormously generous. The last thing I want to say is that I'm in the middle of writing my piece for this week. It'll go out later today, and so I'm showing it to you in real time. So
Preview.
JD Vance scares let me see if I can pull that up, Neil.
Yes,
Yeah,
scares me
it's
more
yeah,
than Trump.
yeah. And I haven't finished. A shape-shifting chameleon. Dot dot dot. And this cartoon is by our friend Jeff Danziger, who has JD Vance contemplating a promotion by reading the 25th Amendment. So you'll see my arguments later today. So if you sign up, please do, and you'll see it. And I have been seriously critical of and warning people about JD Vance for 6 years now, 5, 6 years now. So please, everyone, watch it, including about his South Asian wife, his Indian American wife, Usha, who is not some innocent bystander, but someone who is complicit in all the things he is doing. And finally, to say that here he was interfering in an external election by going there on purpose to Hungary to prop up Viktor Orban, who is a authoritarian figure that both Trump and Vance admire. And the election is taking place today on Sunday. All signs point to the fact that they're going to lose, and that'll be a huge blow to the right wing in America as well as in Europe and around the world. So we should cheer for that and hope that happens. But we don't know exactly. But the news is that when Vance went there and spoke, Orban fell further in the polls. So I was happy to see that. Where all this goes, we don't know. But please take a look at srinet.substack.com, srinet.substack.com, and we'd love your support. It's also another form of independent journalism that I'm able to do and we're able to do because of you. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it. John says, I see the point about JD Vance being scarier than Trump, but I find them equally scary. And Neil has put in the link so you can check it out at Substack. Appreciate it. Neil, are you ready to do the newspaper? Since
There,
that's what we're
there's a
talking about.
newspaper. We're gonna be. Let's take a look at the New
Exactly.
York Times. That's what we've done for 10 years, folks, is actually look at the print edition of the Sunday New York Times. And one of the things that we like to do is to look at the choices that the New York Times makes, the photos, the captions, the layout, the graphic design, in addition to the news of the day, the week, as it were, looking at Sunday's paper. So we already looked at the top part of the
Yeah.
front page. What's below the folds, Sri?
Northeastern states scale down climate goals. So even in the Northeast, that's happening. Immigration judges are purged as Trump speeds deportations, and Democrats flee from Swalwell over a scandal. And that's Eric Swalwell, who is running for governor. He's a congressman. He's on TV a lot. He's been accused of sexual assault by more than one woman. And that race is so jumbled up that this will clear some of the air because you will see at least some, we'll learn at least about some of the other candidates now. So that's going to be something that we'll see. Neil, your thoughts?
What's interesting, Sri, in terms of the impact not just on the governor's race, but also on Congress. There's this there's several members of Congress who have been accused of sexual assault, of rape, inappropriate relationships with staffers. One who actually embezzled money, I think, out of a COVID relief fund. So as far as the politics of this is concerned, there are calls to remove Swalwell from Congress, which to expel him, which has not been done very frequently. The interesting thing is there are actually 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans who are on the bubble for various reasons who might be expelled. So there's a proposal to move forward and expel all 4 without changing the balance of power, because that's, if it was just the one, that would have been a political issue, but with the 2 and 2, it might happen.
Wow. We'll see how that all goes. Historically, Democrats have been quicker to get rid of folks who've been accused, whereas including the president. Look, we have a president who has been found guilty, as well as separately been accused credibly of dozens of attacks on women. Here is a fun piece for people who remember the early 2000s and the 90s. Frankie Muniz. How do you pronounce his name?
Munoz? Is it Munoz?
Munoz, but there's an I instead of an O. Now, in a new Malcolm in the Middle has plenty he still wants to try. And Malcolm in the Middle became famous became famous later because the dad in the show became Walter White. Walter White is the role played by Bryan Cranston in Breaking Bad. And Mary says, with Orban, I think the Trump administration is also taking notes on how an election can be manipulated and how you can deny and try to invalidate the results you don't like. So we should all be paying attention to what's happening in Hungary. The real estate cover, keeping New York's old vibes thriving. As a landlord on St. Mark's Place, Charles Fitzgerald has built up and maintained the counterculture atmosphere on his block. That's so interesting. Look at this block here. These are very popular. By the way, this restaurant, Sichuan Mountain House, which is on this block, almost impossible to get a table there. You have to stand in line for a couple of hours if you want to eat there. But it's highly recommended by my Chinese culture loving and language knowing son, Krishna. He really loves that. So this is the real estate section. So for everyone who was worried that New York is breaking down and everyone's leaving New York, unfortunately, that's not happening. And the name is pronounced Frankie Muniz. 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 Sounds almost like a Pakistani name or something like that. Yeah. So let's see here. The cover of the Metropolitan section is a show of faith in a community. The Reverend Al Sharpton is moving his civil rights group to a new home in Harlem, part of an effort to counter gentrification there. And I was with and around him in the No Kings rally a couple of Saturdays ago.
That's right.
It's this easy to steal subway trains. Teenagers first need a $10 key available on Amazon to break into the control booth of a of a train. Rail obsessed teenagers have found it alarmingly easy to break into subway trains, and we need to consult our friend Bob Anthony, whose father worked for the MTA. What does that mean, and what's happening there? By the way, piece written by former guest on the show, Sarah Maslin Near. She always gets great stories and is a font of story ideas. She was, ever since she was a student, more than 15 years ago with me at Columbia Journalism School. This is Sunday Styles. Viewing her life through a camera, Petra Collins, a photographer and model who helped shape the millennial aesthetic, explores fame, fandom, and misogyny in a new work of fiction. And then the cocktails taking over Gen Z. Experts worry that buzz balls are a high alcohol magnet for underage drinkers. By the way, at dinner yesterday, I met someone who lives in a dry town in New Jersey. And I didn't know there were such things. And in this dry town, they're able to not worry about their kids drinking, because you just literally cannot get alcohol in that city easily, or in that town easily. Let's see here, Neil. I saw this clock and I thought we're changing hours again for some reason. That's the kind of graphic you see when fall
Yeah.
behind, spring forward kind of thing. And oh, I was hoping this is not her, but it is her, and you can tell by the giant collagen lips. This is Lauren Sanchez Bezos.
Yep.
Someone has to be happy. Why not Lauren Sanchez Bezos? As half of an unfathomably powerful couple, she seems to have influenced the uber rich to stop apologizing and just enjoy themselves. Do we really need the story? Do we really need her on the cover of Sunday Business? A shout out to Bezos's previous wife, his first wife, who supported him all through the
Yeah.
rise of Amazon, and Mackenzie Scott, who has done so much good in the world, while Lauren's doing so much bad in the world. A perpetual food craze cycle driven by social media, appealing flavors and photogenic colors are a marketer's dream. So I'm not sure which cycle this is, but they're talking about that.
If you look at inside, Sri, if I remember seeing the picture online, there was something that used like a taro root, if I'm not mistaken, because it was
Oh,
purple.
yes.
And
I
that
love
made it
purple. You can
look
see I'm
like
wearing purple
cannoli,
today. I love
right?
this purple shirt and the purple there. Look at the
Little purple
con-
here.
yeah. So this is all about the taro root. Well done. A game plan to
Much
coach
less our
Peloton. Yeah, a
sorry,
game.
Sri, I was gonna say much less our New York Times read along colors,
Oh,
purple
that's right.
everywhere.
Yes. A game plan to coach Peloton back to health. There's a corner office column, and we've had the corner office columnist previously, Adam Bryant, on this show. And speaking of former guests, we want to do a quick shout out to our friend John Byrne, who was a guest on the show as the senior editor in chief of Business Week, and then he came on with Poets and Quants. He retired after many successful decades in journalism, and his wife paid tribute to him in a beautiful way. So, John Byrne, we're thinking of you. Enjoy your adventures, and let's see where the sailboat takes you. We wish you the very best as you go through. Folks, we have about 6-7 minutes left, and we have a lot to cover. So we're going to keep going. Neil will be paying close attention to the comments. Please post your thoughts on the show. We have changed the show over time. We are now available on podcasting platforms such as Spotify, as well as on Apple Podcasts. Of course, we're not live the way we are here, but if you like us on audio, please go to the show and watch there on, just look for NYT Read Along and you'll find it. And for anyone who thinks, gee, why would you look at a show like this where there's so many headlines and stuff, visuals, why would you watch it on the air? We try to describe things so you can listen. And did you know that 60 Minutes, the most successful show in US news history, has a simulcast on the radio in New York? And we used to listen to it that way for many years. And by the way, that's a show that is in deep peril now that Barry Weiss is in charge of CBS News, and she will soon be in charge of CNN and soon in charge of John Oliver and his groundbreaking show. So there's a lot to worry about with the news. The Sunday opinion cover is A Life We No Longer Recognize. Gaza already shows what it means to destroy a civilization, right on the cover here of the Times newspaper, of the Sunday opinion section cover. The book review cover, Dark Days. The scholar Raylan Barnes catalogs America's long, shameful love affair with blackface and minstrel shows in her expansive new book, Darkology. And here's some here they're showing us Stein's blackface minstrel makeup, how you can do that. So very important topic. And by the way, Neil, I have talked about this. I do not use digital blackface. A lot of us don't even know we're doing it. When you post a GIF or a response, something you grab off the internet, reactions, a disproportionate amount of them are black folks, and you should not be using that as your response. Often they're making fun of the people in there. So I've done a whole lecture on this, And it's my commitment to not use digital blackface, something we don't talk about enough, and maybe a topic for a future discussion. And
Sri, I want to ask you a question about that.
Mhm.
What about whiteface? There's a comedian that's been poking fun at Charlie Kirk's widow, dressing up as her, and there were some questions about whether or not that was appropriate. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, even as I made fun of Lauren Sanchez's collagen lips, I was thinking, I'm not worried so much about the whiteface part, but is it misogyny to call out a woman on her looks? Though the looks are so much a part of that whole Mar-a-Lago look that is now revered by so many people in this country. So with Charlie Kirk's widow, it's such a political thing that's happening. I certainly wouldn't dress up as her or anything like that. What happened to Charlie Kirk was terrible, should not have happened to him, and therefore to his family. But the way she has played up and taken advantage of his passing has also been widely commented on, and so I don't see that connection with some of the things we're talking about. But that's the whole point, that none of this is clear, none of this is known how and what we should be aware of. Here is a very soothing cover of the Times Magazine, which is just very minimalistic, two eyes, and it says, "What if vegetative patients are aware of what's happening?" Wow, that is a deep topic. And they have redesigned the magazine for the first time in a decade. And we have not had a chance to explore it because we're out of time. But we had a hashtag life highlight, Neil and I, when we got to go to the office of Jake Silverstein, the editor in chief of the magazine, and read the New York Times with him on a Wednesday because the paper had just come out, and the magazine had just come out. And so at some point we should ask for a designer to come talk to us about the
Yeah,
changes at the magazine. I think that would be a lot of fun. And that brings
we,
us to the end of this. But let's read
I want to just
Diana's
bring in this
comment. Yeah,
comment.
yeah,
Yeah,
please.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And sorry, it's with the oh, you turned that off. So she had a longer comment, but right on the comments you made about Lauren Sanchez, I can appreciate that Mackenzie Scott has done remarkable work and made a meaningful impact. At the same time, I'm wary of the way conversations sometimes turn into comparisons between her and Lauren Sanchez Bezos. It's easy to reduce women to how they look, dress, or the choices they've made about their appearance, and that doesn't feel useful or fair. I'd rather focus on people's actions and contributions than frame things as one woman versus another. We're better off not turning it into, and that, of course, is cut off on in terms of what we can fit on the screen. So I'm looking for the full comment. But I think one thing that's worth comparing the two is not in terms of their looks, and it's look shaming. John says, but let's focus on their actions. Let's focus on what they have brought to the table in terms of what they've done with the access to wealth. Both, in the case of Mackenzie Scott having divorced Jeff Bezos and what she's done with that money, she has given an incredible amount of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, with no strings
Billions of
attached.
dollars. Billions of dollars.
Billions of dollars with no strings attached. She has changed the face of philanthropy, overnight. Lauren Sanchez Bezos and her, what comes to mind is the wedding in Italy, the super yacht, the living it up. And that article, Sri, is really focused on her encouraging other mega wealthy people to just have fun, to enjoy life. It's very different than encouraging other people, other mega wealthy people, to give more. So that's
Yes,
what I'll say
and
on that.
yeah, unimaginably rich and unabashedly happy. Like, of all the causes you could take up in the world, I don't think rich people need to be told that they can enjoy their wealth because they're doing it anyway. And here's how the Times framed it. You see both the women with their former husbands, that Sanchez with her former husband and Scott with her former husband. So I agree and acknowledge that it is an awkward thing. Even as I said it about her lips, I thought about that. But this is world we're living in now, where everything is political, and she's made it so. As we're just going to wind up here, so let's say Pradnya says Dry Town. Next thing you know, there'll be kids secretly dancing in a barn, and that's exactly what I said to my friend from the dry town in New Jersey. Diane says Ocean City is a dry town in New Jersey. I don't think they live in Ocean City, so this must be another dry town in Jersey City. Neil is putting up a link to John Burns' exit interview, and you can also find the video of our interview with him on our
And
website. Diane says, thank you for mentioning Kate Byrne and her husband, John Byrne, such special people who are always working to make the world a better place. That's what we want. And I think we had Kate and John together on our
separate
episode,
episodes, I think.
separate interviews, but they were both great and both have done so much. And Mary says Scott has given a lot to historically Black colleges and universities, which have lost government funding. I hate that donors had to fund what government and our taxes should be funding. Sujana says, but people are allowed to dress the way they want. And lots of people have a lot of plastic surgery and feel good about it. It may not be someone's liking, but so what? I think we can absolutely discuss the people's contribution to society or lack thereof. What a important point on which to wrap up our show. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. We appreciate your time, your attention on a Sunday or whenever you're watching. Do us a couple of favors, please. One, tune in to Neil's very important show coming up. He's going to remind us of the show coming up on Thursday. We want everybody to watch Shining Light on Shadows, a candid conversation about mental health. Sexual assault survivors' trauma isn't a competition. And we have a very special guest, Neil.
Yes, Serena Martin will be our guest, and the three of us, Dawn, Serena, and myself, will share our stories and really emphasize the idea that we shouldn't compare one against the other. Everyone's trauma is their own, and we really want to make sure that people, who have experienced any type of incident, and it's across the whole spectrum, even what you might consider just the slightest bit of assault in that sense or abuse versus a long term or a very violent attack. They should all be treated the same.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Let's say quick goodbyes to everyone. Jonathan says, lively show, thank you. Deborah, we learned how to pronounce DeLand, Florida, and she's leaving after dancing all night. Sujana says, as always, a fantastic and much needed discussion. Thank you. Neil, your bravery amazes me. Thank you so much for your support, Sujana. We truly appreciate it. Radian says, everyone, have a great Sunday. Stay safe and strong. So, everyone, tag your friends, tell them about the show. We'll see you not next week, Neil. We are taking that weekend off, and we will be back the weekend after. I might,
26th.
I might do a IG live of it. So make sure you follow Neil Parekh on Instagram and follow me at Srinet on IG as well. Let's say goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.